Hey, hi everyone, I'm Aditya and welcome to my channel Specialized Automations. And in this today's video, I'll be discussing about the singleton design pattern in Selenium framework. Okay, so let's get started with the objective today. I'll be discussing about what is singleton design pattern in Java with example. Then we'll be seeing the static base class versus singleton class in Selenium, how to use it in Selenium following the designing base class using singleton, and executing script in Selenium and pros and cons of the singleton uses. So before we get started with the singleton, first of all, I would like you to know that in my earlier tutorial and whatever the video I published before, what we have done, we have basically created one base class that is containing the after class, before class methods, and whatever the common methods for that we have designed the utility classes. And my test script were extending my base classes, right? Okay, so my test script class suppose test A. So test class A extend the base class, okay, the setup class. So in that way used to do, but the suggestion is that your test class should not extend any other classes. Okay, it should be independent to each other and it should not expand or inherit other classes. Okay, so if I do not want to extend the base classes, there is another way we can do it via the singleton in Selenium. So what is singleton first of all? So let me read it out. So in object-oriented programming concept, if any class having any single object, or better to say one instance of the class at a time, then we can refer such classes as singleton classes. So the main purpose is to control and handle the object creation and restricting the number of the object to only one singleton instances. Okay. So rather we are creating in case of Selenium, just WebDriver driver equal to new Chrome driver, new Firefox driver. Each time we are creating different WebDriver interface object. So we will be limiting this driver creation only to one instance only. Okay. So just like the static fields, any instance field of the singleton will occur only one per class. But that doesn't mean singleton and static both same. Obviously, we'll be using the static class variables and the static method in singleton. But still, there is a difference between the static class and singleton design pattern. Okay. Example, we can say that the Java.language runtime is a singleton and Java.language math. This is a static class. And for Selenium, we can say the logger class. For logger class that we will be designing, if we design it using the singleton, then we will be using the logger object for each and every class. We do not have to extend the logger class. Or in some cases, suppose you are connecting to some database server, so only one instance will be enough to create to check the connectivity or to connect to the database, and we'll be executing all our script. And once the script has been passed, we can just close the driver instances to disconnect from our DB server. So in that case, each and every time we don't have to connect to my DB server, and we do not have to create any separate object for this. So in that case, for connecting DB using the JDBs, we can get singleton design pattern in Selenium. Okay, and the example just have shown you right now, that the logger class and the one kind can DB server in Selenium, we need to use it. We can use it. It's better to have use this because each and every time we do not have to connect to the DB. Right, one single instance will be enough. And this is the sample sorry, this is a sample code that I am showing you how we can implement the singleton design pattern. So first we need to create one singleton classes, and we need to define one static static singletons instances. Okay, so here we are defining the static singleton instance as a null. First we have to define as a null, and then we have to provide this constructor that I'm providing. Constructors are protected. Remember that here we are doing the lazy instantiating. There is two instantiating, early instantiating and the lazy instantiating. So if you wanna go deep into this subject, there will be pretty much tutorial is handy over the singleton design pattern. You can get over the internet. Okay. So here what we are doing, we are instantiating the lazy instantiate. The instance, particular this instance of the class will only call after we call the get instance method. Okay. So the main thing what we are doing, the public static demo singleton get instance in this method. If the instance equal to null, then we are creating a new instances. Okay, the new demo singleton class object we are creating, and we are returning the instances here. Okay, so we will be implementing the same in our Selenium also. Okay, let's see one example with Selenium. So before we proceed, singleton versus static class in Selenium, first let me show you my setup. Okay, So earlier in my previous videos, guys, I have shared you just have created a simple setup class like this. So like we are taking a public static driver one, and we are defining the before class and after class. All these things are there, right? Let me just close it. Let's test and normal setup. What exactly we are doing? We are passing two parameters, and we are defining the base class, before class, after class, and for this base class, whatever the parameter I was passing, if it is a Firefox, we need to take care of the Firefox driver. So driver equal to new Firefox driver, driver equal to new Chrome driver, and driver equal to new I driver. And this way, all my test script is supposed to take as example, all my test script, this is my test script. It was extending the base classes, like browser setup classes. Okay, these test and setup classes. Okay, just let me show you. Okay, so all my classes are basically extending the base of browser setup classes, and some classes are extending my test setup classes. Okay, so here we have to define the WebDriver driver, and for each and every test script level, we are creating a new driver object. Okay, by extending it. But in case of Singleton, let me show you. Suppose this is the class that I created using the Singleton instances. Now see the difference. For these cases, this is the driver class that I've created. Okay, and what exactly we have done here? We have taken two class variables. There's a static WebDriver instance equal to null, that is as per the syntax I already told you. Platform is Windows 10 that I'm currently using the Windows 10, and we are taken to methods that void driver setup, that is throwing the IO exceptions. So first, if instance equal to null, then we are simply writing, then initializing the driver interface. Here exactly we are passing instance equal to new Firefox, and capabilities, or the capabilities, Windows 10 platform Windows, and all the things that I'm passing. Okay, these are capabilities. Okay, and I'm coming to this later. Just, yeah, read properties file from get was coming to this portion later. Okay, the same way, if instance equal to null, okay, and if and I'm fetching the browser name actually. If I'm fetching the browser name from my properties file, so if the properties file and dot get browser name is equal in this case Chrome, then I'm initialing the Chrome driver. So initial in my earlier setup, like for what we are extending, we used to write driver equal to new Chrome driver, right? Here see the difference, we are creating one instances. Okay, instance is equal to new Chrome driver. Okay, so one single instances will be creating. Okay, same for IE also, and whatever the browser name we are getting it for the read properties file. Okay, read properties file, let me show you. This is my read properties file basically. So from this file, I have shared a separate tutorial how to read properties from your configuration properties. So there is 2 or 3 way you can do using static method only, using class loader. For that I have shared a separate tutorial, separate video on that. Okay, so what exactly we are doing, suppose this is my configuration properties. Okay, okay, suppose I'm doing testing on some Facebook application. So this is the URL, and this is the browser name I'm giving, and saving it as a config.properties. Now one class I have to return, that I have written read properties file. Okay, so from the configuration properties I'm reading all this data. See the difference. I'm simply created one class. Let me just minimize this. Yeah, read properties file. Inside the static file name I'm providing where the configuration file has been located. Config properties file I'm providing the locations. Then file input stream FIS, and properties taken as the properties of the prop which will be holding our all these file properties. Okay, so in the static string get URL, this is a static method. What exactly I'm doing? The FIS file input stream FIS equal to new FIS input stream. I'm passing all the this file into this input stream and loading all this file into the properties. Okay, I'm returning the properties.get property URL, so it will basically return. So if I call this method get URL is the starting method, so we can easily call it via the class name.get method name. So it will simply return the URL. So whatever the URL mentioned here, URL is this facebook.com. Okay, similarly for if we navigate, we can see for Great browser we are returning properties from Great property browser, so it will return the browser. Okay, so as this is a static, as this is a read properties class and this is the method is a static method, so simply read properties file dot get browser, it will return the Chrome whatever you mentioned configuration properties. Okay, so for each and every, for as per your project requirement, whatever your project require, you need to provide your different properties, whatever the URL, browser, username, DB, connectivity, password, admin authorization level, password, everything you need to, for that you have to prepare one separate configuration properties file that is applicable totally for that particular project, and one simple file read properties file that we are going to use, we'll call that particular field from that properties, and we will be passing those fields into our driver classes. So in the driver class we see read properties file dot get browser equal ignorance case IE. So in the same read properties file dot get browser, so it will fetch Chrome right from the configuration file, and the read properties file I created the get browser. Okay, so if it Chrome dot if it is equal ignorance case Chrome, so if it is same then it what it will doing that it's creating one instances for new Chrome driver. Okay, so similarly instances, instead of doing driver dot manage timeout and doing taking care only of the particular instances, okay, that object instances of driver. So instances dot manage a timeout, this is the implicit timeout are given, and instances dot manage timeout dot window maximize. Similarly when you are closing, instead of closing driver dot close or driver dot quit, we are exactly taking care of the driver instances, so we will be closing instances that close and instance that quit. So see the difference in the, if you use a singleton, only one single instance will be created throughout the class level, it will be applicable for the whole class throughout the class, and will be operating on the single instances and will be closing this particular instance. So when the test script was done. Okay, so now look back to my and if you are familiar with the POM based object framework that I was earlier, I was using the Selenium provided page factory framework. So in that case, I was initially passing WebDriver equal to driver and driver equal to driver equal to driver. I was passing the driver and driver, okay, in the constructor. But in that case, as we are using the instances for singleton classes, let me just yeah, so in the pages also we what simple change has been done, that is we are passing WebDriver instances rather WebDriver driver. Okay, so driver instance will be this current instances. Okay, so instead of passing driver we are passing the instances. Okay, so let me show you a simple test script that will be easier for to understand. Let's take it as example of this one. Okay, suppose this is a test case name that I have a demo test script that created, that is name as a test ngab test and test case 003. So what is basically doing, it is just signing to my Facebook account, checking, doing some kind of validations if it is present about the NAS, or clicking on simply logout button and then closing the browser. So simple, as I've told earlier, we are not going to extend any base class, we are not going to extend any base class. So in this we need to define three methods, right? Test setup, test and tear down. So in the setup method, see, this is very much simple. What we have done in the setup method, driver setup and driver.instances and navigate, we are reading it from the property get URL, okay, from the properties file. So driver setup, this is pretty much easy to understand that whatever exactly I'm doing, setuping driver. And if I look back, go to this declaration section, we can see in the driver setup, it's basically taking care of all kinds of activities, which is fetching the data from the configuration properties file. Okay. And similarly in the tear down method, what we are doing, driver destroy. So code is very much easy to understand right now. This is the driver destroy method, we are deleting the instances. And if I look back to the test classes, see the difference. As we are using a page factory object model, so page factory dot init element, rather we are passing the driver, we are taking the driver dot instances. As I have told you, just we are creating the taking care only the instance in the page object model. So we are passing the driver instance in the page object model, and then the simple operations, logging and going to Facebook dashboard, giving the logout money, then doing some fluent way to wait for some particular element to exist and click on that element. I'm logging it out. Okay. Uh, So let me summarize what I've done. For Singleton, this is the one Singleton classes, the driver. This is Singleton classes that I created. The Singleton driver classes that is fetching the data browser name from my configuration properties. Okay, the configuration properties, to read that I have created one separate utility file, utility class, the read properties file. This is a static. What I am doing, I am fetching the data from the configuration properties, executing the read properties file. I am passing the data to my Singleton driver classes. So this is my Singleton classes, and in my test classes, just rather we are not extending anything. We are just passing the driver instances. Okay, so driver instance navigate and driver string. Let me just quickly run it. So it's printed initializing the driver instances from browser test and created. Okay. So all things have been loaded successfully. Just trying to log into my Facebook page. Everything is enabled. It will verify all those things and it will try to click out, log out from my successfully click logout button. Also clicking on logout button. Okay, and then closing and quitting the driver instances. So throughout this whole test script there is only single instance of the Chrome driver has been taken care of, and we do not have to extend anything. So class is independent enough, and what anything, if we need to change anything, we can just change it. We do not have to change anything in this test script class. Just we need to change in the configuration properties if different URL have to pass, or if anything more we need to implement, we can just mention in the driver class. Okay, rest all things will be taken care. So this is the Singleton class. In this example I have shown you guys that we are reading it from the properties file. Okay, that configuration properties file, and if you do not want to use properties file, you can also pass the data from your, create a simple class and pass the data from, pass the same kind of data from this class level also. Okay, suppose take it as example. Okay, suppose I've created one separate package like configuration package. You can see configuration package. I have created one class, configuration class. So in the configuration classes, this is my configuration class. Under that I have created two inner classes. That's the nested classes basically. Inside the inner classes I'm passing to, they have taken for each and every class we have taken one each string static variable. That exactly string app URL I'm passing Facebook, and static browser name equal to Chrome. So if you are not using any configuration properties, okay, and if you configure, if you are using for your project a properties file, you're fetching it from the properties file. For that you need to create one read properties file to create to read from it, and you need to pass this corresponding to your driver classes. But if you're not using it, you can just create one single configuration file that will be containing all your string, browser, APL, whatever the DB password. Okay, now simply what you have to do, initially we were passing the browser from the read properties file, and we can just simply do it this way also. Okay, let me just mark it. Okay, the configurations, let me just, okay, so in this case configuration browser. So let me show you, configuration class is going to the browser. This is the inner class. Throughout the inner class I'm extending this static object. So configuration.browser equal to Chrome. Okay, so I'm fetching browser. If it is equal to Firefox, or if it is equal to Chrome, then it will be fetching this particular instances. And and to fetch the URL, what we need to do, configuration.url.app URL. Okay, so let me do it. and or we can pass it here like IE. Okay. So now instead of reading from this properties file, we are reading from the configuration class file. This is a separate configuration package under this we have created. Okay. And for my other things will be same. And for my test script level, what I have to do, I need to pass the URL from the configuration.url app URL. Okay. So for that we need to import this one and just comment it out. Unused organized import. Okay. Okay, so you're passing it from the configurations, these classes, configuration classes. Okay, so let me quickly run the program again. Okay, it will it's loading, it's validating all the things. Okay, so same way, if you are using Singleton driver classes, you can fetch the application related data from your properties file, or you can pass it from the configurations class also. Okay, so let me summarize, and it will get passed. Okay. Just hold on, guys. Okay, so this version passed successfully. This is my sample classes negative configuration model. Okay. So guys, we have seen therefore that we can use how we can use the driver classes, our singleton classes to create one single instances throughout this whole test script level, and we can pass our URL or browser any kind of data parameter. And your test script. Test script should not extend to any other browser setup classes. So it will be independent to each other, and it will use only one single instances. Okay. And in the driver classes, singleton classes design pattern we have seen, we are using some static variables, right? This is the static variable and static methods only. This is my driver singleton design pattern class. So all this method static variables and method was static void saver setup, static driver destroy. So that's how we are implementing. But singleton design pattern or singleton classes are not a static class. There is a different. Okay. So so different is that first of all static class provide better performance, okay, than singleton pattern, because static methods are bounded to compile time. Another important part is that if you use a singleton, then we have the ability to override. Static method cannot be overridden, so that leads to the inflexibility. On the other hand, if you use you can easily override method if you are defining it in the singleton classes by extending it. Okay. Another thing is the singleton are pretty easy to mock and thus easy to test, but and it's easier to write test for singleton than static classes, because you can pass mock object wherever singleton expected. That exactly we have shown. Okay, so into a constructor or a method argument, we can pass our mock object. Another thing, if requirement need to maintain state, then singleton pattern is better choice than static class. Okay, so particular one instance I'm going to operate, then singleton is a better choice. But if you are not maintaining any kind of state, then static is also fine. Like if for that you need to create one factory object pattern, and not about the viscous you are creating, you can go with the traditional way. Okay. Now the next thing I'll be discussing about the pros and cons of the singleton design pattern. Okay. So if you are using the singleton classes, the main disadvantage of the using singleton is that they make the unit testing basically very hard. So they introduces global state to the applications, and the problem you will encounter that you cannot completely isolate your class depending on some singletons. Okay. So when you're trying to test a class, you inevitably test the singleton as well, but when unit testing, you want the class to be loosely coupled, okay, with other classes as possible, and all the dependence of the class should be ideally provided externally so that they can be easily mocked. But unfortunately, if you use a singleton, that is not possible with a singleton, as they introduce a light tight coupling and the class retrieves the instances on its own. But it gets even worse. Basically, the global state of the stateful singleton is preserved between the test cases. So the test can have unwanted side effect caused by singleton, and you cannot run your multiple tests in parallel. So this is not a thread safe, we can say, in singleton. And multiple invocation of the same test case can result in different result. Okay, so if you are invoking multiple times using multiple instances of the same test case, it can may happen the different result you will get. And another thing is that it basically hides the dependency rather than exploring it. Okay, so when a class requiring some external collaborators, it is immediately obvious from its constructor or method signature, right? So it is clear which dependencies classes has, and those can be easily provided. Okay, but it is even worse when that singleton requires some kind of initializations by calling some kind of init method or something initial state. So in that case, there is no way for someone who is going to use that class to know what they're going to initialize before they initialize singleton classes. So it's get even messier when there is a number of dependencies in singleton which need to be initialized in a specific order. Okay. Another thing we can say, the singleton prohibits the creation of the new instances by hiding its constructor. So nobody can call the constructor directly. There are, however, additional means of creating the new instance of a class. One of them, this is serialization. Deserialization is one of the factor. If singleton is supposed to be serializable, you need to make sure only one instance is created during the deserialization process. Okay. So those are the pros and cons. Basically, we can say running parallel test is not possible. Maybe it will differ in result, and this is not a properly thread safe. But I will suggest, if your requirement is to design framework using the singleton design pattern, then you can go with it. We have seen enough that how we can define, how we can design the singleton classes, and and instead of extending the base classes, we will be using the singleton classes for each and every test script level. And how we can do it in Selenium, we have seen enough. So guys, that's all for today, and in case still if you have any questions, please let me know in the below comment sections. I'll be happy to help you on that matter. And in designing framework using singleton classes, if you have any query, please also do let me know or mail me, that my mail ID already been given. And if you just like this video, please help to subscribe and share with others. Okay, so thank you guys, thanks everyone, thanks for watching, have a good day, bye bye.